I mean, look, I am actually someone who believes Van Halen was better with Sammy Hagar, but you got to love some David Lee Roth.
They're just two different bands. So
Well, they are two different bands.
I don't know that I can do the better or worse. There is a certain era of my childhood that is defined with the 1984 album. And then there's everything that happened with Van Halen after that. So if you like soap operas, the Van Hagar stuff was great. And Sammy Hagar and Van Halen put together some really great music. I also think David Lee Roth is a very problematic person in the prism of 2025, but in the early 80s, he was the absolute shit.
Oh man, like there's nothing like more badass than reach down between my legs and ease the seat back.
I mean, Hot for Teacher, that might as well have been a David Lee Roth solo song.
That's like what I think that's a good point, because I do feel like with Sammy, the music was maybe
it was definitely better.
It was certainly more important, or it
was more important. It was very clearly more educated guys. You had a group of guys that understood music theory and actually could put it into practice, where I think you could pick up a David Lee Roth type from any bar.
Yeah.
And have a not dissimilar performance.
Right. But when I think of us, man, I just think of you and I being a couple of gigolos. That's why I thought, why not this morning to start with just a gigolo. Now, Andy, we've done something different. We have sent you out into the field to get some actual baseball reporting. Andy, would you please give us an update on the new Las Vegas Athletics Stadium? How close are we?
I was staying in the Aria, so my room had a view, and I made a point to watch the progress being made on this world-class stadium. And what I noticed and had confirmed later by hotel personnel is what they are doing right now is this process called pushing dirt. And so they are paying somebody to take a bulldozer and push a pile of dirt from one end of the lot to the other every couple of days. And they have some cranes out there that don't move. So if you add that all together, I'm going to say the A's will be playing in Las Vegas sometime by 2030 if we don't have a work stoppage.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, well, it is a fairly well-known canard, if you will, in the Vegas community that what's his name? Williams? No. The A's owner is about $1 billion short in funding, and they're still trying to find it. But until they do, they're trying to get people excited. And literally, that's the activity. They have a couple trucks driving around. They have a pile of dirt being moved. They swing the cranes periodically, but not while I was there. So I have no firsthand proof of that. Otherwise, it's just a big dirt field next to the MGM ground.
All right. Well, that's the hard-hitting journalism you come to this show for.
Well, and if you're an A's fan, good luck holding on to anybody who needs actual contract money coming up in the next couple of years, because I don't know how you do that with a stadium that draws, 13,000?
Here's the thing, man.
Is it even that?
It's not even that, I don't think. And I predict two things. I predict the A's will move to Las Vegas, and I predict that Major League Baseball will make that owner sell. Because I think I think they're over him as well, because he's ruining one of the more historic franchises in the sport, and they are going to need that team to be good when they hit Vegas.
And frankly, the rest of the league who pays money for baseball players needs them to continue to develop players and lose them in free agency. So
yeah, I'd like that Nick Kurtz to saunter on over here.
Yeah, that would not hurt my feelings at all.
Not in the slightest.
He could come today, actually, if that'd be okay.
Yeah, right. Well, I mean, the playoffs start today, I guess. Well, I guess let's put a bow in the right thing, because then we'll get into my neurosis. Andy, the Astros took the wood to the Rangers. There's zero other way to look at it outside of a possible bullpen meltdown on Saturday, the second game of the series. So that would have been Tuesday. They showed up in a way that you expect a battle-hardened, playoff-ready team to show up, where they stepped on the Rangers' throat and didn't let them up. And the Rangers are now essentially eliminated from the playoffs as a result.
which, not a rivalry, but it doesn't make me feel any bad thoughts to see the Rangers miss the playoffs, especially knowing that the few Rangers fans that I talked to have convinced themselves that they were going to win the division as recently as this past weekend. So 3 in a row for them, 3 in a row for the Astros, going in opposite direction. That's all good news for Houston. And I think you're exactly right. The Astros could have curled up in a ball after Jordan went out on Monday with the ankle injury. And instead, to borrow a Lane Frost parlance, cowboyed up.
Yeah.
8 seconds. Underrated movie. Even
For those of you listening, I'm doing the Lane Frost waving to the. He's riding for Lane now. Sorry.
But no, our starting pitching showed up, even in the bullpen game. Blue Ball definitely stepped up. Probably the best outing that he's had in his short major league career.
Colton Gordon looked good in his.
We didn't throw any of our. I'm going to say 3 because I have to. Our 3 good pitchers, which is really 2, but we'll talk about that in a minute. And just stayed. We got early leads and kept them and built on them, which is something this team hasn't done. We haven't gotten early leads. We certainly haven't built on early leads that we haven't gotten. And so it's been a lot of waiting to get to the bullpen, and we didn't do that this series. We took the action to the Rangers at the very beginning of each game and put the pressure on them, and they did not respond. And, sucks to suck, but that's kind of how baseball is these days. And we're about to enter a series that's basically 2 of 3 for 162.
Yeah, let's talk about that then. The Astros and Mariners. I've got my reasons why I think the Astros have a really good chance to win the division. But not only that, Andy, 90 wins isn't out of the question. I mean, really and truly, if they can go 6-3 against a stretch that also includes an A's team that's given up and an Angels team that's given up, you can find yourself at 90 wins, which seemed a foregone conclusion at the beginning of the season and then got real dark in the middle. The Astros, I think, have many advantages for them going against the Mariners. One, I think they have a starting pitching advantage. I do believe that Fromber is going to Fromber, good Fromber on Saturday. I don't know what, I have nothing to back this up, except I just feel like all of his mishaps really can be erased with one really good start on Saturday. The Astros have already hit Brian Wu once. And I think after having put 9 runs on Jacob deGrom across 2 outings, the offense actually has looked really good over the last 2 weeks. The Mariners don't have a very good offense when they're on the road. I don't know. I'm feeling with all kinds of terrible paranoia and fear, but buoyed by some bits of positivity.
And we're, in theory, bringing up this kid, what's his name, Isaac Paredes, for this series, although Dana Brown is being really cryptic about that. I don't know why Brown and Espada have gone to the cryptic school, but that's how they've been talking about, well, we might activate him. We'll see. We don't know.
Yeah.
He could die between now and then what will we do?
Hey, before you continue, just give a really big shout out to our good friend H-Town Wheelhouse who's watching it. He's been pretty public on it on social media. He's been dealing with some health stuff. Hopefully he is back home and doing his thing, but we're definitely thinking and praying for you, brother. So thanks for checking us out. Back to you, Andy.
Yeah, I mean, as far as this series goes, this is as must win as a regular season series goes for the Astros. They do still have 6 games after. So it's not like they can win 2 of 3 or win the series and take the foot off the pedal, because they do need to win those games. The Seattle leaves Houston and goes to play the Rockies for 3, which you should chalk up as 3 wins for Seattle. But then they have a Dodgers team that's fighting for playoff position right now. So that should be a good series at the end if things haven't been completely decided. But the Astros, it's really difficult to predict. I'm glad you have a good feeling. I don't know how I feel about it right now, because every time I think I've gotten a handle on this team this year, it's been something else that's happened. It's been another injury. It's been another pitcher going down for 18 months. It's been a random twisted ankle. Um, and this is still a team that has won more games than it's lost. It's still a team that is currently leading the division. And if a couple of things fall right, they're a team that has a chance to have a bye for the first round, which, health being what it is, would not be the worst thing in the world if you want to see a Josh Hader pitch again this year. I think Hader has even said as much. If you want to see me, it's going to be the second, third, and fourth rounds of the playoffs.
Yeah, I don't know that I even feel good about it. I've come up with rational reasons why I think the Astros have as many shots as ever, but I'm actually I was sitting yesterday in the gym at St. Edward's University watching a very proud moment for me, watching a former student of mine and a family I love. He's making his head coaching debut. And it just sort of hit me that like this weekend is kind of going to be a chips all in, and this team is so schizophrenic. I think everything on paper, including ESPN's projections, like their projections give the Astros a 55% chance of winning tonight and tomorrow. But this team has done all kinds of weird shit all year. I don't know if you can really just count on them.
If the Astros have anything in their favor, Seattle is not a good road team. They haven't been for a few seasons now. They're not this year. We are pitching Hunter Brown tonight, which even going against Brian Wu does give us the pitching advantage there.
And they've hit Brian Wu already a couple of times this year.
Yeah. Jason Alexander goes on Sunday, and Jason Alexander, despite the fact that every analytic measure hates him, keeps putting the Astros in position to win games, which you could not have predicted Jason Alexander would even be on a roster at the open of the year, but that a guy that literally would come off the scrap heap and be arguably the second best pitcher on this team from the All-Star break on would be such a key piece, and he has been. And I don't see a reason. And it's not like he throws spectacular, has had necessarily a lot of luck. He throws strikes and seems to know how to pitch. He doesn't throw hard, which I think is part of what the analytics don't like about him. And I think he doesn't, he is a little bit wild in the zone, so to speak, but he's a guy that keeps the Astros in a position to win games. So I feel good about Sunday. For me, Saturday is the weird game because Fromber's been horrible for months now. He has added a full run to his ERA over his last like 4 or 5 starts.
Yeah.
And it's baffling to me that a guy this deep in his career that still should be in the prime of his career can be cruising along and then just give up 4 runs in an inning on a bunch of nothing. A blink of an eye, and it's happened game after game after game. I really would like to see something from Joe Espada that we haven't seen, and that's the short leash on Fromber. And I mean, when he's in the 4th inning and he gives up 2 walks to start the game, he's gone.
You start one, yeah.
You go to your bullpen at that point. You don't wait for him to figure it out on the mound, because I don't know that you have that luxury at this part of the season. I don't know that Espada will do that. It will be really interesting. And I hope we don't need it. I hope you're right. I hope Fromber has a bounce back game, because this fan base, as critical as we are of Fromber, we want to love him. We would love for him to show up and be the guy that he thinks he is. A lot of us are tired of it because he hasn't been. I think that's kind of the rub. But
if the Fromber thing is so interesting with this fan base, because it's the third. He's the third rail, where there are some that are just that any criticism of it at all is going to require receipt pulling, as if you can't have a rational conversation about how the guy used to be great and is no longer great.
Well, sure. That's that 2022 glow. If you're on to some extent the 2017 team, but that was almost 10 years ago now. So the 2022 team's the most recent example, and he pitched really, really well in the 2022 playoffs. And that's what we as a fan base remember. It's the same idea that players that do well in the playoffs have to have permanent roster spots.
Yeah.
We get really pissy when, the Phil Matons and the Ryan Staneks are dealt or not re-signed because they're technically fungible commodities. because they're bullpen guys. And you saw people in our fan base just lose their absolute minds because we were attached to the guys that perform well in key positions. And I don't think we're unique as a fan base for that. But Fromberg gets a lot of protection from certain corners of our fan base based on something that happened, 3 years ago now.
3 years ago now. And I'm with you. I hope that Joe realizes, okay, you had a day off yesterday and you have a day off Monday.
Mm-hmm.
So if ever there was a game, a series primed to essentially manage that pitching staff to win every single game, it is this one.
And you should be treating it's not an elimination series, but you should be treating it like one. You should be treating it. I would like to see Espada use the same strategies that he's going to use in a potential wild card series, where every win does mean you stay alive for the next game. This weekend, I want to see balls out to the bullpen. I want to see smart substitutions, not the wholesale everybody plays in the outfield kind of substitutions that he's been doing. And leave yourself in a position to win all 3 games if you can. But
it's the kind of thing for me where, like what I'm looking for Isak, for example, is I want Isak to be able to get on base once a game. And if that means he takes a walk in the first or second inning, I'm okay with pinch running for him at that point, because runs are premium. And the last thing you need to do is, one, re-injure the guy. Hits a ball to the gap. I don't want you trying to stretch a single into a double if it's going to be close. Like, play smart.
Yeah, I mean, you should look at how Bochy used Adolis Garcia in this past series. Adolis was not running hard on the base path because he can't, because he had a quad injury.
Yeah, it was not an effort thing. He was hurt.
And we will have I can already see the situation where something, because Isak potentially is running at half speed or 3/4 speed, that some fan loses their mind because he's not hustling. You want to see him play the rest of the season and into whatever playoff situation we find ourselves in. You're going to get half speed Isak Paredes, and you're going to need to be okay with it. He's going to DH. He's not going to play in the field if they activate him, because they still haven't committed to that. But let's assume that happens. You're going to get a half-speed guy who has the potential to deposit balls in the Crawford boxes. And that is something we haven't had, that we miss. The other thing is, if he does get a walk and get on base via a walk, I assume it's because he saw 10 pitches to get that walk. And that's something this lineup has desperately been missing as well.
Well, that is the difference between why they in the first inning against DeGrom on Wednesday, they only scored 2 runs, but they saw 35 pitches.
Yep.
Like, the entire lineup channeled its inner Isak Paredes. I mean, except for Pena, who got a base hit on the very first pitch of the game, I think, maybe the second, but that's okay too. But the point is, if the Astros take the approach they had this week against the Rangers, I think that they're pretty close to being unbeatable. It's when they beat themselves by hacking early and chasing balls into the other batter's box and the shit that we've been seeing. But I don't trust them enough to have that same level of discipline game in, game out. And maybe they will now, because it is the playoffs and they have the example of having swept a really hot Rangers team coming in.
Yeah, and that's the hope that carries over. I like you, I don't know what to expect this weekend. I want them to win 2 out of 3 games. Selfishly, I want them to win the Sunday game because I'm going to be there, and it's kind of miserable to be there in the last game of the season when they lose. I've done that before. It's kind of they don't discount anything in the team shop, by the way, for the last day of the season. Just letting you know that.
You'll be using my last season tickets because
I'll be there, but promise. You'd think if you're shutting down the stadium for several months, you'd put some things on sale. They don't do that.
No, they don't. If the Astros just make a wild card, do you want to see the dog pile?
I don't think this team would dog pile.
Good. I'm becoming a little Longhorn with this shit of you dog pile in Omaha and that's it.
I think that if the Astros clinch the division, they still will, because based on everything, all the shit that has happened this season, that's still, like you and I have talked about, that's still an accomplishment to win the division. That's the one thing you can control and it's the one thing that's not a short sample size roll of the dice lottery like the playoffs is. So I think there will still be a muted celebration, but a celebration. I think just clinching a wild card spot will be a subtle nod and some handshakes and maybe some hugs, but not much more than that. I don't think there's a champagne ceremony in the locker room for clinching a wild card spot for this franchise, for this team in 2025. If they do that, great. That's for them. There are some young guys on this team that deserve to have that experience. But
some of that feels performative to me these days anyway, like it's an advertising opportunity.
Yeah, probably, because I know that they wear Oakley goggles and they drink Budweiser products in the locker room because they make a big show out of showing those bottles and those goggles.
Yeah.
Where can I get some of those goggles?
I'm going to phrase myself as caustically optimistic. I told Jessica and I will not be at the game. I was committed to stop going with the losing, and it's killed me. It's actually really killed her a little bit because we're not gonna be able to do this. We're not doing the season tickets anymore next year because it's hard living in Austin, as you can imagine. So this was going to be our last season ticket weekend. And I was like, I can't do it. I really believed I was bringing bad luck. And so I will be at Texas Memorial Stadium, Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium, Texas War Memorial Stadium.
On Joe Jamel Field?
On Joe Jamel Field. And I am Ubering because I'm going to be verschnicked sitting there watching my phone, watching the game cast, hoping this Astros team gets it together. Andy, one of the things that's been kind of neat as we now transition to my Longhorns to get your opinions on Arch on the weekend, but I've kind of it's kind of been kind of neat where I've seen players like Chance Mock and David Ash all kind of come out publicly in support of Arch Manning and really just pointing out things like, and what's funny because like Chance Mock, for people that don't remember, was a Heisman candidate the day he was benched for Vince Young. Like he was not benched for his own play. And in fact, there was a couple games that first season of Vince as a starter. I remember beating Tech where they needed one pass. They brought Chance in and he threw a 50-yard Hail Mary to beat Texas Tech. Like Chance was a good quarterback. He just wasn't Vince Young. What was kind of neat about David Ash's tweet is he wasn't even talking about himself. He said, I watched the Longhorn fans boo a quarterback who went on to tear up SMU and have a 5 or 7 year NFL career. That's Garrett Gilbert. So I was kind of proud to see a couple of former Longhorns, not just kind of back up or support another guy playing the same position they played, but also admonishing our fan base for doing what our fan base does, which is getting a little New York Yankee when it comes to if things do not play out on the field exactly the way they think in their heads they should play out. I was happy to see it.
Yeah, I think part of that is who your draw is. And unique to some other colleges in Texas, the people who attend football games at Darrell K. Royal Texas Memorial Stadium at Joe Jamel Field, Taco Bell parking lot, whatever it's called.
The Mac and Sally Brown redunda.
Yeah. Famous Amos cookies.
Sally's cookies, all those things.
You have a lot of corporate fans who treat it like a pro franchise, and they think I bought my ticket and they're right to boo. You have fewer students, and you do have a student section that's very involved. I'm not claiming that, but it's not as big as some other schools. It's certainly not as big as what's at A&M, and that's not a diss on Texas. It just literally we put 35,000 students in a section. There's very few other schools that do that. But because of that, you get quicker to the disappointment and the disillusionment of a fan base. I've been saying throughout this entire series this year about the expectations of Arch Manning are way too high, and it's a lot of unnecessary pressure early. He can't help what his last name is. He can't help the family he was born into. He probably could help his footwork and his throws a little bit more. But it's not like you were in danger of losing that game this past Saturday. They just literally didn't like that there was a struggle against UTEP, and that it didn't look good. The defense looked great. The running game, which is, again, what Sark was trying to establish all day Saturday, got better as the game went on. the deficiency that showed up at Ohio State and that showed up in I forgot your second game, and that was still kind of evidence for the first 3 games, is the offensive line is new. They have to play together. If you have a good offensive line, your quarterback looks a lot better. If you have a bad offensive line, or an offensive line that is young and trying to figure out blocking schemes and trying to figure out assignments, your quarterback's not going to look as good. His timing is going to be off. His footwork's going to be rushed. And I think more than anything else, that's what's happened to Arch, is that the offense as a whole has not been cohesive yet.
Yeah.
He owns part of that. But the idea that you were getting a ready for TV primetime quarterback starting the season was an oversell that I think the Texas media machine should have downplayed a little bit more than they did. And they didn't, and it is what it is, and you can't help what the national media thinks about that. And again, that's more about the guys that he shows up to Thanksgiving dinner with than it is about him.
Right.
But Arch is going to be fine. It's just going to take minutes to get there. I expect him to take strides against Sam Houston State tonight or Saturday night, because I don't think y'all are going to be trying to work on the run game. I think it'll probably be, if I'm guessing, just based on kind of the tea leaves, it'll be a lot more emphasis on the passing game and helping Arch get his timing down. And I think you see a much better quarterback against, yes, another crappy opponent, but it's got to start somewhere. And so if I was a Texas fan, I'm not worried about the quarterback situation. And I think it's silly to pretend that you are.
I'm only, I think Texas fans, because I think the Texas fans that are worried about the quarterback situation didn't realize that this offense was going to be a work in progress because of all the new faces. What did I say on this show? I think Arch is going to win a national championship for Texas next year. I never thought they were going to win it this year. I think that they'll make the playoffs. I think that they have a good enough defense and run game to do that. But the people that are freaking out are doing exactly what you just said, which is reacting like it's VY 2005, not VY 2004. And I think that's a better comparison. You're right. He can't help what his last name is. The kid seems to be saying all the right things when he gets the thing shoved in his face. I will say this, though. You also had brought up that you thought that Sark was playing with his food a little bit. I hope he doesn't do that this week, because you've got to bye next week, and that's a long time to deal with this story for 2 weeks. Mm-hmm. I'd like you to be able to take some of the media pressure off of your quarterback before you go into what is now turning out to be a very bad Florida game, a very bad Florida team.
Yeah. I think that Arch needs to have some experience, some modicum of success before conference play starts. And again, I think that's part of why my thought process on this is that Sark is going to package the first half to highlight what Arch does well. And I think you're going to see a lot more designed runs. I think you're going to get him more into the flow of the game, which helps his passing based on what we've seen in the past. And so those things will happen. It'll be on Arch to perform, and he's going to have to do that. But I think it's going to be a lot more friendly environment for the type of quarterback Arch Manning is Saturday night against, frankly, an opponent that's worse than these last 2 that you've played.
Yeah. I mean, Sam Houston State is not the thing, not it. So let's do some merch shout outs, because I'm wearing a really cool t-shirt from Ram Shirts. Houston raised me. And you've got a really sweet A&M hat. Where did you get your hat, Andy? What are we wearing today, Andy?
You'll be upset because it's one of your enemies in Ebbets Field flannels.
They are one of my enemies.
Well, you're just not big enough, Jim, and we can't go on your show because you're not big enough. I know you're only on Amazon, but you're not big enough.
Yeah, I'm not big enough.
Well, they lost their storefront to COVID, so after that conversation, so good for them.
Yeah, good. Good for them. It's sweet. The hat's sweet though.
Yeah, I'm always on the lookout for retro A&M stuff. So this pleased me that they've added this to the line, and they've got a couple of other things. Interestingly enough, I saw a teaser on Twitter last night before I started falling asleep that evidently we're going to be doing a throwback game with this aged logo. Excuse me.
Uh-huh.
Somebody can't stay out of the room when I've explicitly told them to stay out of the room. It's weird. Anyway, why would a 20-year-old listen?
But no, yeah, you're it's definitely sharp. I'm always looking for good Longhorn flashback gear as well, so that's pretty damn sweet.
Yeah, so there is evidently going to be a game where we're wearing some sort of throwback gear. And to the young A&M fans, this is what the logo looked like for 25 years. So don't get all upset that it looks like a fourth grader drew it. No, this is on purpose.
This was on purpose, and frankly, I don't know. I hate to be the old man yelling at the cloud, but it was better back then.
I mean, a lot of things were better back then.
A lot of things were better.
Gas was a quarter. You could take $1 to the movies and get 95 cents change.
Yeah. Yes, you could.
Sorry, I just channeled my father.
Yes, but let's talk a little bit about there has been a big change to college football, and that is the transfer portal has changed. So we've been talking about this, for a while, that it's an undue pressure on a lot of schools that are still playing in the playoffs. Talk to me a little bit about what your thoughts on now. It's just one portal and it's about 11 days long.
I think it's probably worse for the kids and better for the schools. And you expect that pendulum to shift a little bit, but the big benefit to me as a school is that a situation won't occur like what has occurred with A&M the last time we had to change coaches and hired Mike Elko. You have to fire a coach, you have to hire a coach, and if you wait till the end of the season, you have about 5 days to fire a coach, do a search, hire a coach, and have them get out on the road to recruit guys for a portal that opened while they were being hired. And so it puts every college team that has a coaching change, even a position coaching change, and a lot of times at a distinct disadvantage. It also penalized really heavily teams that did well. So teams that were preparing for the playoffs now had to devote resources to managing the portal and looking at the portal. And some of that's just the price of playing the game these days. But you get to this point now where it's limited to less than 2 weeks. It happens after the bulk of the bowl games. The big money games are still happening. The playoff games are still happening. But you have time as a school to deal with that. I also think that it creates, when you have a short window, it's going to create better bidding wars, better financial opportunities, for lack of a better term, for the players who do enter. Because when you get, when you've been pressured to buy a car, sometimes you might make the best decision on the financing. It's going to be the same way with these schools. If a top quarterback comes out and you've only got 11 days to woo him, you're going to throw everything you can at him, and every other school is going to do the same thing. So it's going to financially benefit the players with a smaller window rather than having our current situation, which is 2 windows and then maybe a one in the fall. And they also did not remove the benefit to the players if you do have a coaching change, that their window opens immediately.
And it's much longer too.
Which seems to have backfired for UCLA, because I'm hearing that they've had several players enter the portal now that their coaches their head coach was fired, and wow, they haven't even played 4 games. So those kids all get to redshirt if they have that ability to do that. So
are any of them coming to our schools?
I have no idea. I have been in Las Vegas all week and have ignored most of reality.
Most of reality has been ignored. All right, Andy, what's not, well, if you've been able to ignore this reality, we're having, we do an independent sports show, and I figured out that you and I have been doing some version of this for almost 7 years now. Like, we've been doing something like this for a really long time. And we enjoy that ability to do that because we live in a country with free speech. The Jimmy Kimmel thing, I think smart conservatives recognize that it is a problem that of firing a guy or forcing a guy to be fired by the government for saying things you don't like is problematic. But I wanted you to weigh in on what happened on Texas A&M's campus. And it seems to me um, that I saw some Aggies that are upset about it, and then waiting for Longhorns to laugh at A&M for what occurred. And I don't know any Longhorn that's got any reason on his head to see that anything as other than scary. Why don't you break down what happened, why it happened, and what your thoughts are on what went down on the campus with the president of Texas A&M?
Well, I guess a couple of weeks ago, there was a children's literature class, and the professor was giving a lecture, instruction, whatever, on a particular book that mentioned the fact that there might be more than two genders. And I'm going to just assume they were homeschooled. I don't know this, but it really fits the bill. It basically knew what was coming, entrapped the person, videotaped an entire conversation about how that
Secretly
student
videotaped.
that student didn't feel that it was right to violate Trump's laws when it came to discussing more than two genders, and that they didn't want to break the law or something to that effect. And so that became a big deal, and the professor was suspended, and an investigation was supposed to be launched, and just a lot of political back and forth. And what it culminated in yesterday is the president, General Mark Welsh, resigning from his post at Texas A&M as president of the school. I think resigning is a very generous word, because typically when you resign in good standing, it's not effective the same day or the next day. It's a couple months from now, because you give the school time to search, because it's kind of important during the school year for a school to have a president.
Mm-hmm.
General Welsh's resignation is effective today, probably right now. And so he's forced out, and he's forced out because he pushed back against Glenn Hagar, who's the chancellor of the system. And that means you're basically in this state pushing back against Greg Abbott, who ran on abolishing DEI and ran on the idea that there are only two genders and that trans people are evil and all this
I laughed
stuff.
at ran.
Yeah, all this stuff. And so there are people in the fan base. There are people who watch sports. There are people who, and just what I consider meatheads, who see vengeance happening and are pretty happy that vengeance happened, because you scored one against the trannies, I guess. I know I'm not supposed to say that. Or struck a blow for anti-DEI legislation and upheld the Trump's law. I think anybody who's a serious thinker in this matter understands that government regulation of education is dangerous. It is authoritarian. It is fascist. And it should be unwelcome on any institution of higher learning at anywhere in this country, most especially a state that prides itself on people being independent and have the ability to think for themselves. As a Texan, I'm embarrassed. I'm ashamed, because we've given in to our weaker impulses. And it seems to be the way that things are going in this state and in this country now. The fear of the other is managing everything. And what really galls me is it's not fear, it's control. If you can't learn things, if you can't learn how to think for yourself, you're never going to question why things are, how things work, or if they could be better. And it's the same state government who tells you that education is failing in the state, who has been with the same party who's been running the education system for the last 30 years. But it's the other people who've caused the problem. And you shouldn't question that. That's my issue today. Sorry.
Well, no, I want to clarify some things. I think what you said and how you said it was really important. And I don't believe you should be shutting people up no matter what you say. Like, one of the things that's always frustrated me with people on the way left is if you say something slightly wrong, use the wrong terminology, they tune you out and want you shut up. Like, it's no different. They're just using the government to do it. And we should all realize that We should all be able to say whatever we want to say in this country, as long as it's not a direct threat to somebody. What I also have a real issue with is that student completely entrapped that professor, and the professor, being a teacher who's like, I thought that professor answered, like, I don't know what she taught. I don't know how I feel about what she taught, but the fact is at college, you can get up and leave if you don't like it. And she trapped that professor, and then the story coming out of it was completely not representative of what the context of the video showed. I thought the professor handled it professionally, considering I'm sure she did not walk into class to that day expecting that exchange. She probably went in there expecting to teach a class. She did not kick the student out of the class. The student said, "I'm going to walk out," and the professor said politely, "Well, you're welcome to go." And the only thing that the student said at all, because I guess the student, I don't know anything about the professor. I guess she's LGBTQ. And she did say, "My lifestyle is not illegal." That's about the only thing that she said that had any direct confrontation. And guess what? She's right. I think what we've done in this country, both right and left, is we try to distill political issues down to single sound bites when things require nuance. And like, I don't know how I feel about some of the different issues, particularly with some of the social issues we're dealing with. You know why? Because they require nuance, and we don't want that anymore. We want sound bites. We want to be able to bully somebody that's different than us. I know that the professor, I guess, also lost her job after all of that. Anyway, it's such a it's just a real it's sad. I guess colleges are liberal. I am not a liberal, but I expect there to be that kind of thought. But I also expect that you should be able to be if you're so confident in your beliefs, Andy, you shouldn't be afraid of hearing somebody else's.
Well, I think that's a really interesting point, because A&M is known for being a conservative campus, and it's still more liberal because of the nature of its student body than Marlin, Texas. And the people who are complaining, the people who are up in arms, the people who are just scared of the other live in Marlin, Texas. And somehow their opinions have become majority rule. And we live in a state where we don't actually vote on anything, because our legislature thinks we're idiots and won't let us vote on anything. So where you've seen states have referendums on abortion, on THC use, on a host of other topics, Texas doesn't get to vote on that, because we've set up a government for ourselves that prevents our legislature from having to open things to a public vote, which is why we now have school vouchers, which is why we don't allow abortions, which is why we don't do a lot of things that we would, under normal circumstances, count as our own personal freedoms, which as Texans we're supposed to value over just about everything else.
Or for a state that is mostly conservative, letting millions and millions and billions of dollars go to Louisiana to gamble, because we don't let that happen here, or
Gambling is another one of those
Colorado
things.
to buy weed because we don't have it legal here. These are all things that 70% of the Texans want to be legal, but we don't have it because of your to your point. And we're not up here. I mean, like, I'm a big both sides guy. You know, the whole them trying to gerrymander the Texas House. The story goes that the Democrats might have a hard time matching them in other states because they've gerrymandered them to the hilt. We are all getting screwed by the government. It's just that people are so blind to take their victory lap now because it went their way. But what's going to happen when things flip? You've created a precedent that's going to allow them to fire. Like, imagine if we get a Democrat in the White House. Fox News is fucked, because we've now created the standard that that's okay to go after people who say things that are different than what you believe. Although I'm glad Fox News might be fucked.
And see, you're allowed to right now. If you extrapolated some of the sound bites that have come out of some of our elected officials, not only statewide, but from a federal government standpoint, you might not be allowed to say that Fox is fucked or that Fox has ever done anything bad soon. And that's the chilling part, that if you're celebrating right now because Jimmy Kimmel doesn't have a job or Stephen Colbert got canceled or whatever it is you think is a victory, it's going to turn and it's going to get really ugly really quickly. It's a scary time.
My hope is that you get enough, because I think even I saw a clip from Tucker Carlson who doesn't agree with the firing of the Jimmy Kimmel thing, because I think for a second he removed his head from Putin's ass long enough to recognize that
they have the most beautiful bread in Moscow.
Have you ever seen bread?
I went to the one bakery and it was fantastic.
Oh my God, they had bread. You can't get that in America. Bread. But you got you run the risk, like you said, we don't ever correct in this country. We only overcorrect. You run the risk of getting back to a cancel culture that we were already living in, but not politically, not governmentally driven. My only hope is that true conservatives will prevail and recognize that government out of your life means tolerating the fact that you might not like other things people are saying. And that when we do see a power flip, you see responsible leadership out of whoever takes over. But I don't think that's it. I think right now, vengeance is the name of the game.
Happy Saturday, everybody.
Yeah. But you know what? We got football tomorrow. All right. Well, I guess it's actually, we've got 39 people going. I logged in later. They can talk about the Astros. Yes, we will finish with the Astros. Andy, I think the Astros take 2 of 3 this weekend. I could see a sweep, but I think they take 2 of 3. I think they win Friday and Saturday.
I think they have to win 2 of 3. And then more importantly, they have to not step on their dicks the 6 games following that. Because, let's say you do win the series. Let's say you sweep and you have a 3-game lead and then you proceed to lay a giant egg in Sacramento. You've just undone everything. So it's the foot has to be on the pedal the entire time. And every tool that's available to Joe Espada for the next 9 games, he's got to pull the levers right, and guys have to perform. That starts with your starting pitching, but the offense has to continue at least at the level they were against Arlington this week. And if they do that, we're all going to be pretty happy 2 weeks from now.
Just a little depressing of a factoid. Fangraphs released that essentially the Astros have the biggest amount of WAR on the injured list if you look at through the whole season. And if they hadn't had anybody get injured, they're probably sitting at 95 wins and the favorite to win the World Series. That's the team. That's what the team was like in April.
It was like 17 games of WAR.
Yeah.
17.4 or something like that. It was a ridiculous number. And that was before Jordan went out again with whatever's wrong with his leg.
Yeah.
I assume it was amputated. Was it amputated?
I don't have confirmation on the amputation just yet.
So if you amputated it and put like a roller skate on it with a stopper in the front so he could stop, I mean, could he play? Could he hit with the roller skate for a foot?
I would like to see it, actually. Maybe the Savannah Bananas will try it, and then we can.
I'm sure they have.
Sure
half of Twitter will love it, and half of Twitter will tell you you're horrible for liking it.
Horrible for liking it. Well, you're not horrible for liking us. That is going to wrap us up this afternoon. We will be back on Monday to wrap up both the Longhorns and hopefully the Astros having a 1 or 2 game lead in the division. For Andy, I'm Jim. This has been Off Day with Ballpark Nation.